So let's see what this is dealing with. This is tying back into the previous passage of diagonal lines. So since it's connecting back to what has been previously stated, we would need something that we would need a connector that functions as something that adds an example. In his 2005 painting Bittersweet Victory, for example, the canvas is bisected by a vertical beige line. All the other options, by all means, in contrast, thereafter, don't serve to add an example. So therefore, we know that B is the correct answer because it connects the first sentence of this paragraph with this idea that was previously stated in the last paragraph. 68 deals with, or is asking us to choose which option would not make sense grammatically or would not be correct overall. Which of the following alternatives to the underlined portion would not be acceptable? So as it stands, question 68 is correct, but it's asking us which one of the following options would not be correct. So if we just substitute each of them in his 2005 painting Bittersweet Victory, for example, the canvas is bisected by a vertical beige line. The canvas is vertically bisected by a beige line. The canvas is bisected by a vertically beige line. The canvas is bisected vertically by a beige line. The canvas is bisected by a beige vertical line. This particular question is giving us a misplaced modifier, so we just have to identify the misplaced modifier, and that is option G, because something can't be beige in a vertically way. If you can't say this painting is vertically beige, that doesn't make sense. So we know that if you say vertically beige, it's changing the meaning of what the author is trying to say, so we know that that isn't correct. Whereas options F, H, and J all still present the idea that there is a beige line that is bisecting the painting vertically. On to question 69. On the left half, 3 orange triangles in a row, each one which stretched from the bottom to the top of the canvas's left half, angle slightly to the right on a purple ... So on the left half, 3 orange triangles in a row, each one, we have to figure out which is the most correct answer. You wouldn't say each one stretches from the bottom to the top of the canvas's left half, because each one, that clause that starts with each one, isn't a main clause, it's just a non-essential or unnecessary clause that is adding more information to the sentence. So the most correct option, or the only correct option, would be stretching. And if we want to keep reading the passage, on the left half, 3 orange triangles in a row, each one stretching from the bottom to the top of the canvas's left half, angle slightly to the right of the purple triangle. That stretching, option C, makes it most clear that each one stretching from the bottom to the top of the canvas's left half is just an additional clause that isn't necessarily necessary to the overall meaning of the passage. So therefore, C, stretching, is the most correct. On to question 70. Deals with the same sentence. On the left half, 3 orange triangles in a row, each one stretching from the bottom to the top of the canvas's left half, angle slightly to the right on a purple, blah, blah, blah. We dealt with this in a prior question, also deals with redundancy. In this case, you would have to read the entire passage to know what is the correct answer. So I'm going to start at the beginning of the passage, at the beginning of this paragraph. In his 2005 painting Bittersweet Victory, for example, the canvas is bisected by a vertical beige line. On the left half, 3 orange triangles in a row, each one stretching from the bottom to the top of the canvas's left half, angle slightly to the right on a purple, blah, blah, blah. The sentence before this, or rather the same sentence itself, starts with on the left half, but it ends with left half. So it's giving us this information that these shapes are happening on the left half twice in the same sentence. So the only option in 70 that eliminates this redundancy is J. So on the left half, 3 orange triangles in a row, each one stretching from the bottom to the top of the canvas, angles slightly to the right on a purple, blah, blah, blah. This eliminates redundancy and still gets the idea of what the sentence is trying to say across. On to the last few questions. Question 71. On the right half, 3 vertical bands of dark green, one edge of each band slanting to create a point that touches the top of the canvas, cuts through a lime green background. This question is dealing with concordance or number agreement. The subject of the sentence is 3 vertical bands, and 71 is cuts through. If you were to say 3 vertical bands cuts through, that doesn't work. That's not grammatically correct. We would have to say 3 vertical bands cut through, because the plural of, when you're dealing with a plural subject, you would have to say cut instead of cuts. So therefore it would be cut through. On the right half, 3 vertical bands of dark green, one edge of each band slanting to create a point that touches the top of the canvas, cut through a lime green background. Therefore C is correct. For question 72, Little explains that the internal spaces in his paintings, created by lines and blocks of color, need to play off of each other in a way that lends rhythm and unity to the whole work. This question is just asking which option would most effectively get across the idea that this rhythm and unity is being lended to the entirety of Little's work. So this, if we just reread the sentence, Little explains that the internal spaces in his paintings, created by lines and blocks of color, need to play off each other in a way that lends rhythm and unity to the whole work. This actually deals with an idiomatic expression, lending something to something else. So we know that lending, or lends, has to be paired with the word to. So lends rhythm and unity to the whole work. And that is what is already there, what is already correct. So we know that the option is F, because the sentence itself is already correct. You can't say lends on the entirety. You can't say lends rhythm and unity into the whole, or with the entire. The only word that works with this particular idiomatic expression is to. So therefore F, no change, is correct. On to question 73. The effect is much like something that would remind you of a perfect jazz collaboration. This is dealing with wordiness and choosing the option that's most concise, but also gets the idea across. In the particular sentence itself is trying to compare Little's work with jazz. So if we reread the sentence, the effect is much like something that would remind you of a perfect jazz collaboration. That makes sense, but it is a little wordy and a little confusing. So no change is probably incorrect. If we substitute B, the effect is reminiscent of something that echoes a perfect jazz collaboration. That makes sense, but it again is too wordy, and it is using words that aren't necessarily needed. If we substitute option C, the effect is much like that of a perfect jazz collaboration. That works. It's pretty short, pretty concise, gets the idea across of what the last sentence is trying to say. If we substitute D, the effect is being like a perfect jazz collaboration. That doesn't make sense. That's confusing the readers of what the last sentence is trying to say. So out of A, B, and C, the most concise, the least confusing, and then the option that still gets the meaning across is C. So we know that C is correct. 74 deals with if it's asking if the writer were to delete the preceding sentence, the paragraph would primarily lose a depiction of Little's work that. So let's go back to the last sentence that the question was referring to. The effect is much like that of a perfect jazz collaboration. What would happen if that sentence were to be deleted? What would we lose of the passage as a whole? Would we lose the subtle musical reference? Would we lose the fact that popularity of Little's paintings? What would be most lost? And in this case, if you go through all the options, and if you reflect back on the passage as a whole, we know that F is correct because the sentence is, it's ending, or it's rather building the subtle musical reference in the paragraph to create a comparison between Little's painting and jazz. Previously, we've been leading up to this whole idea of music, and this kind of concludes that idea, so taking that away would make us lose this musical reference and kind of leave us hanging in a way. So it's necessary in that what F says builds on the musical reference in the paragraph to create and to complete a comparison between Little's paintings and jazz. For the last question, suppose the writer's primary purpose had been to describe how an artist uses simple elements to convey large ideas. Will this essay accomplish the purpose? So this is where reading the entire passage as a whole comes into hand, because reading the entire passage allows us to get an idea of what the passage was trying to say before getting to this type of question. So after having read it, do we think that the writer accurately and effectively portrayed the idea that an artist uses simple elements to convey large ideas? The answer is yes, but why is it yes? Because it conveys that Little uses shapes and color to capture what he sees as a moment and rhythm of human experience. He even says this in one of the last sentences. His paintings reflect what he considers the essence of our experiences as human beings, and that's in his conclusion. Therefore, he's concluding the idea that option B states. So that's why it is correct. Option A isn't correct because, let's see what option A says. It focuses primarily on one viewer's conclusion that the lines of color in Little's Bittersweet communicate the idea of optimism. Even though the passage does deal with bittersweet victory, that isn't its main focus, and the main focus isn't one viewer's point of view on that painting. And we know that C and D aren't correct because the idea that 75 is asking has been portrayed, but we just had to figure out in what way has it been portrayed. And that is questions 61 through 75. Thank you.